31 or 50? Same ASVAB score, same morning, same person. One branch will take a number 10 points under the one everybody quotes. There's a condition attached to it. File that away.
Whether you can enlist. Leo here, and that's the only thing that number decides. Not your job, not your school seat, not your bonus.
Last episode, we built a line score out of a real report. Today we go up one level, to the gate itself.
I'm Emma, and here's what makes this slippery. Nobody passes the test, and nobody fails it. There's no cut line, no red stamp, no letter home. Think of it like a building with 6 separate front doors. One test, one score, one national program running it, but 6 different step heights. The official ASVAB site says it in a single sentence. The minimum AFQT score required to qualify for enlistment varies across the different branches of service.
6 doors, 6 different steps.
So where does that leave the chart I've seen 100 times, Erica? The one with all 6 branches and a tidy little number beside each?
Well, somebody made it. That's the honest answer. Look at who actually owns this number, though. Each branch sets it, and each branch publishes it. The central ASVAB site, the Department of Defense one, does neither. It tells you the minimum varies, then points you at the service websites. Your recruiter doesn't set it either. And a prep site chart doesn't set it or publish it. It copies it, and it copies it late.
A chart's not a source.
And I'll push back on us there, since I've used those charts myself. They're not lying on purpose, they're just old.
Old is exactly the failure, Leo. A number that was right 2 years ago still sits on page 1 of a search result, and it looks every bit as authoritative as it did then. But the branch page updates quietly, and the chart doesn't. So the gap between them grows every month, and nothing on the page tells you it's growing.
Go to the branch, then write the date beside what you read. 4 steps, and not one of them expires.
Emma, what do I do the night before I test, when I just want one number in my head?
You open your branch's own site and you read it that night. Not a chart, not a comment, not a screenshot somebody posted in a forum 3 years ago. A flaw that can move is only true on the day you read it.
The trend says the real answer here is a habit, not a number.
A habit that takes 90 seconds and outlives every chart on the internet. Before we get to which branch asks for what, one thing, and you do not have to hunt for the drilling. We keep a bank of ASVAB questions on certs.professorerica.com, split up section by section, free, so the moment you know which number is holding you back, you can go work only that part of the test.
The studio chat just pushed up the question I was planning to dodge. So which branch has the lowest ASVAB score to get in?
It's a worse question than it sounds, and we'll show you why in about 4 minutes.
Worse how? It's the single most searched thing about this test.
Worse because the lowest number is the one you should want least, and half the branches won't even print theirs.
Won't print theirs. You're going to have to unpack that one.
6 doors, not 1 gate.
Right, 6 doors, and yours has a number on it. Coming up, the part nobody warns you about, half of them won't even print theirs. Before we keep going, one small favor that actually moves the needle. If this is landing for you, tap like, then subscribe and turn on the bell so you do not miss the rest. 2 taps, completely free, and it pushes this in front of more people who need it. Professor Okafor is at the desk with us, here to help with this next part. The gap between a diploma and a GED.
And it's a gap, not a wall. Everybody I've spoken to who tests on a GED walks in assuming the number's the same for everyone.
Hold on. The question isn't whether a GED lets you enlist, it does. The question is what it costs you in points, and that part is published.
31 with a diploma, 50 with a GED. That's the Air Force, in its own words, on its own page.
2 numbers, 1 test.
I'll say the unpopular thing. 19 points sounds bigger than it is. That's a few weeks of vocabulary and a couple of practice sets.
Think of it like 2 turnstiles side by side. Same building, same test, different height. A diploma holder clears the 31st percentile. A GED holder has to clear the 50th. In people rather than points, That's 19 more out of every 100 you've got to finish ahead of.
19 people. Okay. I was wrong, and I've been saying it out loud for a year.
Say it in people every time. Points hide the size of the climb.
It's a common miss. The word percentile hides the size of it. Points feel small. People aren't small.
Okafor, does the Marine Corps do the same thing?
The identical split on a separate page in separate words, 31 or 50 and above with a GED or a non-traditional diploma. 2 branches, 2 independent publications, the same 19 points.
Same split, different building.
So what's the actual minimum, Emma? Give me the one number I put on a sticky note.
Credential first though, diploma or GED. Those are 2 different answers, and I'm not being difficult. I genuinely can't answer until you tell me.
Say GED. That's the person nobody writes for.
Then it's 50 at the Air Force and the Marine Corps, and you go read it yourself before you test. Hold that number, by the way. It comes back before this video ends, and not as a GED rule.
This next bit's the one people rewind. Take it slow.
50 isn't an arbitrary line. An AFQT percentile tells you the percentage of examinees in the reference group who scored at or below you. So 50 is the middle of that group, which means a GED applicant is being asked to finish in the top half and a diploma applicant isn't.
The top half, by definition. That's the sentence I'd want somebody to hand me at 17.
Say the number back, Emma, just the gap.
19 points. Call it the 19-point gap, and it stops being vague.
The 19-point gap. That's a name I can actually use with somebody.
A measurable gap is a plan. The worst outcome in this whole topic is the applicant who never tests at all because somebody told them a GED disqualifies them. It doesn't.
That myth costs more than the 19 points ever will.
So the honest version is that a GED costs you study time, not eligibility. Which means the fix is hours, and the hours are
Not free. That's the correction. They're real and they're yours.
fine, not free. I'll take the edit.
Here's what those hours are actually buying. 19 percentile points isn't 19 more right answers, it's 19 more people you've got to finish ahead of, and the people in the middle of a distribution are packed tightest. That's why the last few points cost the most work.
A whole category band, and only 4 subtests to move it with. Say that to somebody testing next Tuesday.
Then they should move the Tuesday, not the target. The middle of the reference group is where a GED applicant has to land, and the middle isn't a beginner target.
Earlier, and against a published number rather than a remembered one, which is where this gets uncomfortable because only some of these branches publish anything at all.
Start earlier, aim at the printed number, and go and find out whether yours is even printed. Okafor, Emma, Leo, hold that thought. Three. Out of 6 branches, 3 publish a number you can actually read on their own page.
3 out of 6? That can't be right.
We pulled all 6 this week. 3 print a figure, so 3 don't.
Then how does anybody answer the question at all?
Badly. That's how the charts got built.
Army first, Leo. Their page says the AFQT determines eligibility and requires at least 31 to enlist.
31. One number, no split?
1 number on that page. No second figure printed for a GED holder.
Not the same as no rule, just no publication.
So a third of the scale, roughly. That's what 31 buys you.
Buys you a seat at the table. Nothing on the table.
Roughly, yes. And it's the lowest published figure of the 6.
Air Force next, and I know this one. 31 and 50.
Correct. Graduates and seniors at 31. GED holders at 50.
Marines are the outlier, though. I've heard 35 somewhere.
No. 31 or 50 with a GED, same as the Air Force.
35 was in my head from a forum then. Wonderful.
Army, Air Force, Marine Corps. Those 3 print it. The Navy, the Space Force, and the Coast Guard don't.
Hold on, the Navy doesn't publish a minimum ASVAB score?
Their requirements page asks for a qualifying score. That's the phrase. No figure.
A qualifying score. qualifying against what?
Against a standard they hold and don't print. Which means you have to ask.
Against whatever the Navy is currently using, which they'll tell you but not on that page.
And the Space Force?
17 to 42, a citizen, and obtain a qualifying ASVAB score. Again, no figure.
The newest branch and the least specific page that tracks somehow.
But their career pages do list per job minimums, so the detail exists, just not the floor.
The job number but not the door number. That's backwards.
Careful. Least specific isn't least demanding.
Fair. The Coast Guard's got the highest bar though. Everyone says so. 36.
Stop. That's not what their page says.
It's what everybody says.
Everybody isn't a source. Show me the sentence.
I can't. I've never actually seen it printed.
A number surviving purely on repetition. Careful with those.
There isn't one. We opened the Coast Guard eligibility page and no AFQT figure appears in its readable text.
Then we don't say a number. That settles it.
No number, not 36, not anything.
That's genuinely frustrating, and I say that as the one who wanted the chart.
Call them the blanks. 3 branches with a printed number, 3 blanks.
The blanks, fine. So what do I do about a blank?
You treat it as unknown, not as low. Those are very different plans.
Unknown, not low. Emma, is that a real distinction or a comfort?
Real. A blank tends to mean higher, but we can't source that, so plan high. You go to the source that owns it. 6 pages, 6 bookmarks, 10 minutes.
Bookmark yours, not all 6.
And ask the recruiter to read the line to you, not summarize it.
That's the move, actually. Read it to me isn't rude. It's the whole job.
19 points is not a rounding error, by the way. That's a season of your life. I've spent less time learning my abuela's pau de quejo.
Sounds like the secondhand bookshop problem.
Erica, you've completely lost me.
I collect old reference books. Half of them are confidently wrong and beautifully bound.
Exactly how a stale chart works. Beautifully formatted, confidently wrong, a 31 where a 50 belongs.
Bound, shelved, and still wrong.
There's a question under all of this that nobody will print. If 3 branches won't state a number, is the floor even fixed?
Ask the Army that one. Their own page answers it, and the answer is no.
3 numbers, 3 blanks.
And 1 moving floor.
Okafor, you're back at the desk and you get the first question. Is there a branch that'll take somebody below its own published floor?
Yes, and it's the same branch with the most quoted number in this entire conversation.
The Army, 31 is the enlistment figure on their page. But there's a second number on that same page, and almost nobody reads down that far.
21. That's the number I held back at the top.
21, 10 under the floor?
The Army's own page states that with a minimum score of 21, there's an academic track of the Future Soldier Preparatory course to help you better your score. That's a branch publishing a route beneath its own bar.
The condition I promised you up top. It isn't a lower floor. It's a floor with school attached.
That distinction matters more than the number does. You're not enlisting at 21 and walking to a job. You're entering a program whose entire purpose is to move you above 31, and the contract gets settled after that.
True for almost everybody watching. Almost.
Who does it not work for?
Anybody who isn't looking at the Army. It's one branch's program, not a policy, and we'll come back to who that leaves out.
Correct framing. A Route 1 service builds is not a route the others owe you, and it can be closed by the same service that...
Sorry, dumb question. Does that 21 sit on my record forever?
It's not a dumb question, it's the question. Your scores are a record, and the retest rules govern what replaces them. We're getting to the clock, and the clock is the part that bites.
Here's the thing this whole scene is about, Okafor. Why does a branch publish a route below its own floor at all?
Because the floor is a decision. Somebody sets it, and that same somebody can move it.
The floor is a service level standard, and a standard exists inside conditions. When recruiting is easy, a service can be selective. When it's hard, a service builds a program like that academic track. Neither of those is a scandal. but it does mean a figure has a shelf life.
So the chart isn't just late, it's describing a different year entirely.
Safest read, probably. I mean, safest if the page you're reading is the branch's own.
Take a composite example, and grain of salt on this one. It's built out of the 2 published numbers rather than somebody's actual file. Call him Marcus, 19, GED in hand, walks in wanting the Air Force and carrying a 31 he found on a chart.
He's 19 points short and he doesn't know it.
He's 19 points short and he thinks he's finished. And the arithmetic isn't gentle. 31 plus 19, that's 50. And 50's the top half of the reference group, not a Tuesday evening of review.
Checks out. The Air Force page does say 50 for a GED holder.
So what actually happens to Marcus at the desk?
I can't speak to any individual's file, and nobody responsible can without reading it, but the pattern with these cases is almost always the same. The number isn't the problem. The surprise is the problem because it lands on the one day he's got no time left to fix it.
Quick one for you at home. Of 100 people in that 1997 reference group, how many does a 50 put you ahead of?
80? It feels like 80.
Half of them. That's what the word percentile means. Half at or below you, half above. It's a ranking, not a grade out of 100. And that single confusion sends people to the desk with the wrong expectation.
It's the middle, one middle. And it sounds like the top because of the word score.
Sure, but is it worth waiting for?
Is what worth waiting for?
The higher number. Everybody explains the bar. Nobody tells a 19-year-old with a ship date in front of him whether to take the floor now or wait and clear a better one.
Then let me answer the version that's actually decidable. Both routes are real, they fit different people, and the deciding factor is almost never the score. It's what's expiring.
Say who each one's for, Okafor, plainly.
If a window's genuinely closing, a seat, a bonus, a family situation, taking the floor now is the honest right call, and I won't pretend otherwise. If nothing's expiring, waiting is almost always the better trade because the score's the only part of this you still control.
The cost of waiting isn't zero. That's the part the wait it out advice always skips.
Okafor, thank you. Give them the one line to keep.
Don't let anybody, including us, tell you your number without telling you the date they read it, and go and check the clock before you book the test.
21, 31, 50. 3 numbers, 1 branch, 1 page.
Emma, you pulled the retest policy this morning. What's the actual penalty for testing before you're ready?
Time. Not money, not a mark on your record. Time, and a lot more of it than anybody expects.
How much time are we talking?
A month before you can retest. That's the part people know.
It isn't the part that hurts.
Go on then, what's the part that hurts?
Here's the full shape of it, straight from the published retest policy. There's a 1-month wait between your first ASVAB and a retest. Then there's another 1-month wait before you can go a 3rd time. And after that, a 6-month wait is required between retests every single time. So attempt 1, attempt 2, attempt 3, that's roughly 2 months. Attempt 4 is half a year later.
So the 3rd attempt's the expensive one because everything after it is 6 months apart.
Exactly that, Leo. And most people spend the first 2 before they've studied anything.
Testing to see where I land, which is what literally everyone does.
It's also the one thing that turns a fixable score into a 6-month problem. And nobody warns you, because on the day you book it, attempt 4 is an abstraction.
I printed the policy. It's 3 sentences long, and this is the whole page.
3 sentences, and nobody reads them until attempt 3.
Say the obvious question out loud, Leo, because a lot of people are thinking it.
Alright, here it is, and it's the thing I genuinely want to know. If the floor is a decision, can somebody just waive it for me?
Not your recruiter. The floor is a service standard, and a recruiter isn't the one who sets it.
But somebody sets it, so somebody can move it.
Somebody far above the desk you're sitting at, and not for you personally. That's the whole answer, and it's a disappointing one, so people keep asking.
2 turns ago, Leo asked what actually exists, and I only gave half the answer. The half I skipped is the useful half. What exists isn't a personal exception. What exists is a published program, like that academic track. and a published clock. Both of those are written down, and both apply to everybody equally, which is exactly why you can plan around them.
So the route around the number's a program, not a favor.
To borrow Emma's word, in the blanks you can't even see what the program is until you...
A month of study to move 1 percentile? That's a lot of evenings.
Cheaper than the clock. Burn 2 attempts unprepared and your 4th try is 6 months out.
Yeah, that's cheaper. Taken.
4 weeks against 6 months. It isn't a close call.
It isn't 1 percentile, it's the band, which is the myth worth killing here, because people treat the retest window like a refresh button.
Emma, what does one focused month actually look like? Because vague advice is how people end up doing nothing.
4 AFQT subtests, and only 4. Arithmetic reasoning, mathematics knowledge, word knowledge, paragraph comprehension. That is the whole surface area for eligibility, which is what makes a month realistic in the first place. Somebody studying all 10 sections for a month is spreading themselves across 6 subtests that cannot move this number at all.
6 of the 10 do nothing for the gate. That's the part I keep forgetting.
They do plenty for your job list. Just nothing for the door. The honest other side still stands. If a real window's closing, take the seat. That hasn't changed.
Both things are true at once. A focused month beats 3 casual attempts, and a closing window beats a perfect score you never get to use.
So who's each one for, in one sentence each?
If something expires this month, go. If nothing expires, wait and study.
Nearly everybody watching this is in the second group, whatever the pressure in the room is telling them.
Which leaves the thing we've been circling for 20 minutes. Because the number that opens the door isn't the number that picks your...
Life. The number that opens the door isn't the number that picks your life, and there's a published line where that stops being a slogan.
50 again, you told us to hold it.
That's the 50 I asked you to hold, and this time it isn't a GED rule. The official ASVAB site sorts every AFQT score into categories. Category 3A begins at 50 and runs to 64. And the site states that applicants who score in Category 3A or higher may qualify for enlistment incentives. So 50 isn't just the middle of the reference group. It's where a branch starts having something to offer you.
Right. That's the whole argument for aiming higher, in one sentence.
So 31 gets me in, and 50 gets me courted.
May qualify. The word on the page is may, and I'm not going to upgrade it for you.
Categories 1 through 5, and the incentive line sits at the bottom of 3A.
And 31 sitting down in 3B, 1 band below.
1 band below, with a 19-point gap sitting right on top of it.
I know this one cold, but you're about to make a 6-year decision on it, so don't take my word for it. It's on the enlistment eligibility page of the official ASVAB site, and the sentence reads, applicants that score in AFQT Category 3A or higher may qualify for enlistment incentives. Go and read it yourself before a recruiter tells you what you qualify for.
Read the sentence yourself. That's the whole channel in 4 words.
Yeah, and here's the part that costs the most.
Clearing the floor makes you eligible to enlist. It doesn't make you eligible for the job you came in wanting. Those are 2 separate gates with 2 separate numbers, and the second one lives in the composites we spent last episode on.
So somebody clears 31, stops, and buys admission to a building with no key to any room in it.
Admission with no key. That's bleak, and it's completely avoidable, which is the only reason we made this.
You're right that the floor gets too much blame, though. It isn't the villain. The floor's doing exactly what it was built to do, which is decide eligibility and nothing else. The sharper question is why anybody would treat a minimum as a target in the first place.
Because it's the only number anybody hands you.
Bureaucratic masterpiece, honestly. The one number everyone publishes is the one number you should care least about.
A form that tells you everything except the answer. Classic.
Do the 5-minute version tonight. I say this as somebody who falls asleep to documentaries about people restoring furniture, so I do understand the appeal of not doing the boring thing first.
5 steps, and the 5th one is the only one that changes the outcome.
Set a target above the floor, not on it.
A floor is what a branch will accept. It was never a description of what you should be aiming at.
Here's where I land, and it's a real opinion, not a shrug. Aim for 50. Not because it's magic, but because that's where the categories change, where incentives become possible, and where your job list stops being whatever's left over. That's my verdict for almost everybody watching. The exception's honest and it's narrow. If a seat, a bonus, or a family situation is genuinely closing this month, take the floor and go, and do it with your eyes open.
2 things to actually do. Read your branch's own page for your credential and set a target above the floor rather than on it.
3 branches printed, 3 don't. All 6 will tell you if you ask. And this is what the number above the floor actually buys. Watch a Navy machine shop at sea for a second, because that is a job somebody qualified for, not a door somebody squeezed through. So here's the one line to keep. The minimum decides whether you get in, and the number above it decides what you do once you're there. And if you know somebody testing in the next month, send them this. 31 and 50 are the 2 numbers they'll wish they'd heard first.
If the branch numbers finally make sense, a like genuinely helps this reach the next person staring at a score report. Subscribe if you want the rest of the series. One for you before we close. Next time a recruiter says you qualify, which number are you going to ask about first? Open the page, write the date, aim above the floor. See you at the next one.